You talked about last time about the plastic bags.
The gallon bags.
My shame. Those didn't go out. Okay. Anyways.
Well, welcome to Packed with Purpose, a Care Package Inbound podcast. Care Package Inbound is an organization that exists to deliver hope. And listening to this podcast, you can be part of that hope, no matter who you are. My name is Chris, and I'm joined by the one and only
Jessica Silvey.
Yes, hello. On today's episode, we're excited. We're going to dive into the essence of the backpack. Why does it matter? What are the items, the intentionality behind it? But Jess, I've got a really important question to kick things off.
Okay, Chris, hit me.
Do you scrunch or fold?
Scrunch or fold, scrunch or fold. I'm not sure what that means. Can you explain the question?
Oh, boy.
My immediate thought was scrunch for hair.
Oh, okay.
But now I'm like, I don't fold it. I don't know what that means.
I'm thinking more toilet paper focused.
Oh, okay. Both. I do this little roll thing with my finger.
Oh my gosh.
And then scratch.
Okay.
Now you know. How about you, Chris? You have to answer as well. The people need to know.
I would say I'm not answering that question. And that was an interesting one.
I have no qualms answering that question. I'm like, know my secrets. I don't know. I don't care.
Well, getting into secrets, we want to actually talk through a little bit of the secrets behind Care Package Inbound today. And on today's episode, we really want to dive into a little bit more on why it matters to supply backpacks specifically. So I want to talk first a little bit more about the reality that we actually have a lot of youth entering into the foster care system with trash bags and why trash bags became so common.
Yeah.
So, why a trash bag versus something else? Why can't they just grab anything else in the house to be able to, a backpack of their own? Why are trash bags or something that are more commonly used?
Well, obviously there's the immediate cost effectiveness of it or efficiency of it. And then you also have the availability of it. But like you just pointed out, why not just grab something else in the house? And sometimes that does happen, but it's the same problem that you have with a lot of other items in the house is you cannot rely that they're going to be there, which is one big deal. And another problem is you can get into a house, especially a house that has been neglected, the child has been neglected, which happens a lot of times. And you don't want to dig through a lot of things to try to find things because there is infestations, there's mold, I can't tell you how many times I've heard of foster parents where if their kid does show up with anything, they have to leave those items out on the front porch, even in a trash bag, because they'll have roaches and lice and fleas and you name it, mold, and it's not even usable. So you compound that with a bag from that area, and it's just gets to the point where it's actually harder. Plus, you can spend 10 minutes alone searching for a bag that you might not even find, or you can grab a trash bag and you can spend those 10 minutes trying to fill it in.
Yeah, I would say from a convenience standpoint, unfortunately, from a law enforcement officer or from a social worker too, when they're coming to pick up a child, especially at a home. So one, it needs to be speed.
Yeah, speed is really important.
Sometimes we need to remove from the situation as quickly as possible. But also with the amount of kids that they're dealing with too, to go find a backpack and something that would potentially work for this individual, that's going to be a little bit harder than buying a roll of trash bags and then just ripping one off and saying, here you go pack your stuff.
Yeah. And inevitably, you're going to have people that are going to ask, why don't the police just carry bags with them? Why don't the police carry bags with them? Why don't they keep them in their trunks? Why don't the social workers do it? And that's all funding. Honestly, that's a big deal. But funding and also availability of space. So if you ever look at a police officer's car, they really do not have a lot of space in their trunk and their storage areas to continue to hold so many bags. you know? And same thing like social workers and so on and so forth. There are some social workers I know that try their best and spend their own money to buy items.
Yeah.
But again, it's not funded by any one source. And so it becomes a funding problem.
Yeah. And the other part of trash bag that I think is important just for everyone listening who might not be as familiar with the system and the experiences that these kids go through is what it is unintentionally communicating to a foster child, right? We're communicating that this is disposable, right?
Yeah.
And that is like, I want to talk about pulling on like my heartstrings is everybody has value. Everybody matters. You're not disposable. And so for a child to not only be in a situation where it's incredibly traumatic and it's just kind of a whirlwind of people just like running in and just like, okay, grab this and do this. And like, I don't even know what's happening right now. There's the trauma of that. But then you're being communicated that, okay, all of your belongings, everything that you call your own, it's all disposable.
Yeah, and there's so much of your identification that goes with your stuff.
Yeah,
and
that's
so
really hard.
they're basically saying and it's like always one bag too, right? And so you take everything that they would identify with their personhood, and they put it in a trash bag, and then that trash bag can't even be brought inside because it's infected and infested and whatever else is going on inside of it.
Yeah.
And they feel like that is where their worth is as well.
Well, we hear this from foster youth who have aged out, right? Who are much older right now, and they identify as, oh, I was a trash bag kid. They carry this identity with them long into adulthood. And man, Jess, if we had the ability to be able to change that.
Yeah.
Right?
That one beginning.
That beginning.
Yeah. I mean, I've even heard of cases where kids or adults now that aged out have trauma responses to scented trash bags because there's a very there's a very distinct scent, and everybody knows about it. Like when you pull out a trash bag and you're shaking it open to put it in, there's that smell. And I've heard that like they can't handle it.
Yeah.
Because it just reminds them and it brings them back to that moment. So what we're trying to do is we try to change that moment.
Well, smells have such power. They stick with you. They bring back so many memories. You can have a memory of something and you're like, oh, that reminds me of my grandma. That reminds me of the lake home. That reminds me of whatever event might have taken place, right? Smells trigger those types of things. So I can see that.
And trauma even more so than many. I mean, trauma responses are visceral and like something that, I don't know, like you can't, people like to do this thing where they're like, okay, we'll just get over it. And in some cases, that's possible. In most cases, specifically these cases, that's not something you can just get over.
Yeah.
And it becomes such a just part of their DNA almost. And so if we can get into that first DNA line and lessen that trauma. And we found, like, and we'll talk about it later, like all of the different ways that this is actually helping smooth that transition, lessen the trauma that we didn't actually set out to do. We're just getting these amazing positive side effects of providing these bags.
Yeah.
And it's really incredible to see.
And I think that's why the first 48 hours kind of through this discussion matters so much, right? Is because when we are able to, in the first 48 hours, supply something, a lot of times these kids, and we talked about this even on our last episode, they're going to show up with like nothing potentially.
Yeah.
Like the clothes on their back, right? So sometimes they don't even show up with a trash bag. Like that's not even part of the story. Sometimes it's nothing. So to give them something of their own is so valuable, and it communicates that you matter, that you belong, that somebody thought about you.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think that need is so much more prominent than people actually understand, especially in the teenage world. Like when it comes to teenagers within foster care, like 75% of the bags we make are for teenagers. And we have a person that we talked to this last week that her story is incredible. She was a biological child of these parents that decided to open up a group home.
Yeah.
And this was, how many years ago? Like 30 plus years ago, I think. But what really stuck with me in that story is she said they had over 90 kids, teenagers, come through their home in 10 years. And she said she didn't remember a single one of them coming with anything.
Yep.
And it's like, yeah, hasn't changed.
Yeah.
And I think not only providing these bags, doing the research, because that's something that we're going to talk about, is just the research of these bags and making sure that we're understanding to actually help the system instead of hurt it. There's so many times that you can have the best intentions. You're like, this is my intention, and you try to like either give money towards a place, or you're trying to supply something with something. Like if you go into a mission field or something, and you don't actually do the research behind it, you can actually make the situation worse. And so
when you think that you're making it
you
better.
think it's you making it better, you have the best intentions.
Yes.
But if you don't do the research, you don't study up on what it actually means within the system, within whatever mission field you're in, then you can actually hurt worse.
Well, I think because when you don't do the research of it, you're speaking into something that you perceive without being able to actually meet the individual where they are at. Being able to meet somebody where they're at, I think, has way more power than you just saying, oh, this is how you should think. You don't actually know, right? And I think that being able to supply something like we're talking about right now really provides some dignity to the individual. I'd say that dignity doesn't erase trauma, but it can definitely change how a child walks through the next chapter.
Yeah. And I mean, so much of what we do right now with this podcast is to educate people. We want to educate people on the whys and the hows of what we're doing, but also the whys and the hows of what they can do.
Yeah.
And it's so important for you to be educated so that you can know the best place to put your funding, to put your efforts, to put your time.
Yeah.
And so we are very intentional with that.
So then why backpacks, Jess? Why didn't we choose duffel bags, or why didn't we choose like suitcase, right? Like with wheelers or like something. Why a backpack?
Well, I mean, as you know, we went through a little bit of a learning curve with that. You talked about last time about the plastic bags.
The gallon bags.
My shame. Those didn't go out, okay? Anyways, but we had started off as like, okay, I can get these very, very essential things. And I was thinking, how many can I fit in like maybe the social workers truck or something like that. And even the distribution had to go through trial and error and figuring out the best way to make it to work. And so we thought about duffel bags as well, and that was a possibility. But one of the problems with duffel bags is they're very big on the main basis, and they're actually really hard to be able to not only put everything you need in it, because obviously you have enough size, but then that has to be stored in one of our distribution points, so it's too big.
Yeah.
You know, and then of course we tried drawstring bags for a minute.
We did.
Yeah. We thought about it. We never actually did it, but it was a concept idea. And it was, number one, too small.
Yeah.
And when you have that much stuff in a drawstring bag, it also hurts your shoulders, you know? And so we're like, oh, well, we don't want that. We want these kids to, you know, to be comfortable.
Yeah.
And then additionally, one of the most identifiable things in our bags, I think, is the fact that we don't logo anything. You know, and I think that that's a really important topic that we can talk about. But also with backpacks, they're easy to store. They're easy to personalize. They're easy to take with you when you need to go somewhere in a hurry, which happens a lot, moving from home to home. And you can also use them for school or whatever else. They're very multi-purpose.
Yep.
And so we finally came upon, if a well-built backpack is used, it's multi-purpose. But one thing that we do is we try to change the style of backpack if we can. We always have a big pocket and a little pocket, but we want to change the style of backpack because let's just say that Care Package Inbound does take off and we become this well-known resource for foster care. That would be great. What we don't want to do is have one type of backpack and then immediately that is recognizable as a Care Package Inbound bag, and that child is labeled, which brings me back to the fact that we don't put our label on anything in the bag except for the removable tag. And that's specifically, and a prayer card that we put on the inside. Those are removable. They will not label the child. They can get rid of it if they want to. And the tag itself is removable upon giving it to the child, and it just has an inventory card on the back for the social worker. But it's intentional because there's other places and other organizations and other nonprofits that they can label their bag and it does not cause any harm. But when it comes to foster care specifically, children do not want to use something that will identify them as a foster child.
They're branded.
They're
at
branded.
That point. Yeah.
Yeah, and it becomes a branding scheme instead of a we care scheme or scheme. We care scheme. Who knows? But still, it becomes something that it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
And we've heard stories even when it comes to kids like not wanting deodorant because if they're branded as someone that has to use cheap deodorant, they'd rather stink.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same way with our bags, is if they're branded as a foster child, they'd rather not have the bag.
Yeah.
And so...
Because you're a lot of time... Okay, so you're taken out of a familiar environment into somewhere that's no longer familiar, right? That's foreign to you. So being able to provide something that has some familiarity to it is really big, I think. But then also, if that's something that has familiarity is branded, it's like you're in a new school, potentially, right?
Yeah.
Most likely you are. When you go to live with a foster family or you're in a group home or wherever placement that you are, you're potentially in a different school district now. And if the only thing that you have is something that's branded that says that you're a foster kid in a new space, we know kids can be mean. Unfortunately. They can be really cruel. And so just giving any kind of fuel to that fire can make a really tough situation, even harder. And we don't want that. We want to be able to give you a sense of ownership, something that you can call like, this is mine. This is something that, again, that's familiar, that's comfortable, but that also gives you some security walking into a space. It is brand new. It does look nice, right? It is a quality backpack that you can be proud of. And so just a little sense of, like we keep saying dignity, but a little sense of that dignity goes a long way.
And I think that goes into what we put in the bag. And we talked a little bit about like the research of what goes in it. But like I was talking, we have all of this influx of these amazing volunteers. And one of the positions that we have a volunteer role for that we've just recently filled, but was really hard for me to give up, was item securement or procurement, whatever you want to call it. But I've always been the person that has done the research and gotten the individual items, and I know the do's and the don'ts and the whys. And I didn't realize until we started writing down the do's and the don'ts and the why how long that list is. Because we have a list of items that go in the bag, and it's pretty substantial because it has to be able to provide for them. But we also, with each individual items, have a list of why that item.
Yes.
And why not these other items,
Yeah.
And so it goes back to that research area and making sure that you're not accidentally causing harm in trying to help. And like I wrote down a couple of those items, like one of which is like the hairbrush. So a lot of people think, oh yeah, I'm just going to grab a hairbrush and I'm going to put it in. Well, we put a hairbrush and a comb in.
Yep.
But even with our hairbrush itself, we wanted to make sure that it would work for all hair types. And I know it works for my hair type, but there is a plethora of different hair types out there.
Yeah.
And so luckily we did the research on it and we went to individuals and they told us, make sure that it's in one solid piece. You don't have the backing on the back of the brush the tines can get pulled out. Make sure that the balls on the end of each tine isn't too big because that gets stuck in really kinky curly hair. Yeah. Like even down to the details.
We went through trial and error on, I remember the brushes itself where we had like this rubber piece that was connected at the bottom, and you'd be brushing certain hair types and that rubber piece would just like pull off
the whole thing.
Yeah.
And we're like, that's not sustainable, especially if you have hair that you need to like really, brush thoroughly, or it gets stuck in or something like that. So we're like, we, number one, don't want these children to feel like they're an inconvenience because of a hairbrush.
Yep.
And so we did the research on the hairbrush. Another thing is like books. Like we went through comfort items and books. And I can tell you like all of these different connected research that goes into all of the different items. But at one point in time, I was like crossword puzzles and word finding puzzles. What's that called?
Word search.
Yeah. Word finding.
Word finding. Yeah.
Same thing. Anyways.
We're finding our words along the way.
I am. I'm great at that. Anyways, word search puzzles and stuff like that. But then I did more research and I found out that quite a few children in foster care have undiagnosed learning disorders. And so you put a word search puzzle or something like that in these bags and you're just highlighting that for them. And it goes from a sense of, hey, we want you to feel better and take your mind off it to highlighting their disability without even thinking about it. you know? And so now we have fidget toys that we have researched with our partners in psychology.
Sensory stuff too.
Yeah, things that really help with stress management
Yep.
and self-harming and stuff like that. So we do fidget toys in there instead of any word problems or books. And then we do include a notebook, but it's just a notebook that they can either draw on or they can like write in,
Yep.
so on and so forth. So we work with psychologists.
We do have coloring books too.
We do coloring books for younger ages.
Yep.
So for notebooks is when we start is like age 10 and up, get a notebook. And even the notebooks themselves, I mean, it's a dark thing, but we can't put spiral bound notebooks in our bags because there is children, and these are children in the darkest times in their life, and they do not have a light in their future. So what are you going to do about it? And they want to feel something. So you have this increase in self-harm.
Yeah.
And if you give them a spiral-bound notebook, then you are unintentionally giving them something that they can actually self-harm with. And these are just a few examples. I can go on and on, like why we use joggers instead of leggings, why we have to use dark pants for girls, why the type of face wipes we use, and making sure everything is hypoallergenic. There are details and research in every single item and is intentional throughout the entire thing so that when this child opens up a bag, they can feel it.
Yeah. So let's go through that list, actually. Yeah. Like, we'll kind of intentionally go through the way that we pack this a little bit, and some of the items, we'll pull out some of the intentionality there, because I just really want those who are listening to really understand, well, one, how you could get involved. Like being able to supply backpacks or supply some of these items, that's really huge. But also for any foster youth that are listening or foster parents that are listening, I want you to understand the intentionality behind this. This isn't just a product that we were like dreaming up and decided to just throw a bunch of random stuff together.
Throw it all together, hope it works.
Right. And now, in all transparency, that was part of the beginning of it, right? Is you kind of throw something at the wall and you see like what sticks.
Yeah.
Right?
But I mean, it wasn't even just what sticks. Like I remember when we first started even the research aspect of this, which was in 2017 when you came in with the bags.
Yeah.
And I went to Jayak and a couple other of our social networks in the area.
TikTok, actually.
TikTok as well.
Yeah.
TikTok was a big one. I actually forgot about that one.
Yeah.
We literally did a video where, and it was, again, like we were talking about earlier, it's the videos that you spend like 2 seconds on that go viral.
Yep.
You know, and so I was in my garage and I was like, hey, former foster children, and social workers, all of you guys. I'm like, what is something that you wish you had your first night in care? And like, we got thousands upon thousands of comments.
Hundreds of thousands.
And then people would stitch them and then they would get thousands. And it's like, it was just, I remember I like sat down and I just went comment by comment by comment and made lists.
Yep.
And then I had to like compare those lists to what I already had and then go to social workers and psychologists and doctors and pediatricians. Like this wasn't like, oh my gosh, I just kind of sort of put it together. It's extensive. And I personally read psychology. Why can't I think of the name of it right now?
Books.
No, well, not books. That would be good. Books. No,
I don't read books.
Studies. I'll read psychology studies on like different effects, even
studies,
within
case studies.
Case studies. Like when it comes to children entering care, when it comes to like obesity and how food is thought of when it comes to lower versus middle and higher class citizens, so on and so forth. Like you have all of these different studies that we have to take in effect when it comes to understanding the psychology of these children. And then, of course, we talk to the kids.
Yeah.
You know, and it's important that we come down to the level that we understand exactly what they need and not just impose on what we think they need.
Yes, absolutely. So the backpack is set up where we have, obviously, the big part, the big zipper, the big pocket of the backpack. But then we always have a front side too, so we can separate items that could potentially spill. So like toiletries, for example, right? Or the pen. If the pen ever explodes, we don't want that ink all over the clothes that are going to be in the big pocket. So we actually intentionally separate those items. So let's start with the small pocket, Jess. And what do we typically pack in the small pocket? What are some of the items that are in the backpack?
Well, you mentioned the pen.
Yeah.
And we also put it in the small pocket because who all has lost their pen at the bottom of their bag? It's a pain in the butt.
Yes.
So we want them to be able to find it. And so,
yep.
yes, besides the fact that the practical needs of, yes, we don't want it to explode, there's also the fact that we're like, we want them to actually be able to find it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because inevitably it'll be 3 days later and they'll be like, they have a pin, or something like that in the bag.
Oh, it wasn't here.
Yeah. But we also put, toothbrush, toothpaste. We do a toothbrush holder in it now.
Yeah.
We have the comb, the hairbrush, shampoo, conditioner, body wash. And that's, am I missing anything? I think that's everything in the front. Oh,
yeah,
and deodorant.
Deodorant. And so sometimes with the deodorant pack, sometimes it's wipes versus actually like sticks. So
I
once
prefer
in
the
a while,
wipes, but
that might have to go, the deodorant like pack might have to go in the bigger pocket from a space standpoint. But we try to keep all of that in the front as much as possible.
Well, and an example of like a trial and error that we went through is we had someone donate all of these aerosol deodorants to us at one point in time. Luckily, I don't think we had any explode in the bag, but we had enough explode in storage that we were like, we can't use these.
So, before, so we went through trial and error. We're just going to share this story just because it is interesting.
I don't know where he's going.
We started off with some items in your garage. Then we moved a lot of items to my garage, and then eventually we moved to a lot of items in my basement, and we had some items in your basement, and now we actually have a space where like we store items that's more temperature controlled.
Blessing.
But the biggest blessing. Well, depending on where you live, the harsh winters of Kansas, we had a lot of deodorant that froze and then cracked and then exploded like a lot because when it was in my garage.
I am really glad that we knew about it because when we donate our bags, we give them to our frontline workers. So we give them to our police and our social services and to CASA and all. I can name on and on and on. We have 25 distribution points right now. We do not always know where their storage is. And so we have to make sure like longevity of the bag.
Correct.
And to make sure like however it's stored that it's able to keep those items clean and also like not explode.
Yep. But that also
it seems like something that you wouldn't have to say, but it's there. It's there. Yeah.
So that's the front pocket, right? So we've got a lot of those essential toiletries, but also front pocket is nice because those are going to be items that they might actually need right away. Because when you're stressed, your body typically perspirates, right? So you might actually need deodorant at that point. You might not be thinking through that, but just the comfort of being able to grab in and use something.
Yeah.
Brush your teeth or whatever it might be, or comb your hair. But then we move to the bigger section of it. So let's walk through the items that are going to be in the bigger bag.
Well, and also in the front pocket, before we forget, we also, for girls, specifically for our teen girls.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
We try not to be too overzealous on making sure that the genders are separated too much. But at the same time, there's different plumbing that happens and there's different needs that happens within that. And so, especially for our teenage girls, we need to make sure that we're able to provide for their monthly needs without being too pushy about it, basically. And because it's embarrassing. And so we were able to find these little packs that are really cool. And they come with like 2 small pads, a big pad, feminine wipes, and instructions.
Yeah.
And so what's so important about that is they don't have to ask anybody about it. And we had a story about a girl that came into care, and I guess, and this, I mean, I don't know if everyone on the internet wants to hear about it, but I think it's important. She got picked up from school to go into care the same day that she started her period for the very first time and bled through her pants. And she's sitting in a waiting room, embarrassed, humiliated, hormonal. You have all of these things. Man. What are you supposed to do? And like, that's a worst nightmare on any day scenario, let alone for this girl. And they were able to give her one of our bags, and not only did it have everything to clean herself up, but also make sure that she was taken care of without having to ask another person and be embarrassed about it.
Yeah.
And so that's also an important part of what we put in that bag.
That's huge.
It's funny because it's amazing how many of us are uncomfortable about talking about that subject, but it's something that needs to be talked about.
Yeah. I have 5 sisters, so
you
none
don't
of
care.
that is... No, yeah, bring it on.
Yeah.
Okay, so going to the bigger bag then, so we've got the toiletries, and thank you for filling that in. I think that's a really crucial part. Now we get to pajamas. Right? We get to a change of clothes for the next day, and we're going to walk through some intentional thinking through those as well. We've got a blanket, which is really big, right? So from a comfort standpoint. And then what else? What else is going to be in the big one?
So you have 2 pairs of socks.
Yep.
You have 2 pairs of underwear. And like we also layer this in a specific fashion. So I'm going to go with that. So on the very bottom of the bag, you're actually going to have your change of clothes for the next day.
Yeah.
Because when you think of a kid coming into care, you're like, what are they going to need first? You know, and they're actually going to need their pajamas first. So the things that they're going to need first, we put on the very top, and then we kind of go down. So you're going to find your joggers on the bottom. And we try to make joggers that aren't like, we don't want to like get a piece of clothing and say that it's like, let's say it's tie-dye joggers. This is the only thing that this kid has to change into.
Yeah.
So we don't want to give them something that they might not like, that they don't have an option to not have. So we go over like, okay, we need to make kind of cool joggers.
Yep.
You know, so we definitely do our research on that alone.
Yes.
So joggers on the bottom, and then we have a gender-neutral T-shirt. And we struggled for a little bit about even like what type of clothing to put in, because we had to think of, we may give these kids or give these distribution points these bags in the spring, and they might not use one of them until winter or summer or something like that. So the clothes that we put in have to work for all seasons.
Yeah.
So we finally came to joggers and a T-shirt, right? And then in between that, we put a change of underwear, 2 changes of underwear and socks. And then we have a flannel pajama bottom and another gender-neutral T-shirt, because I think everybody's seen the teenagers walking around in just a T-shirt and pajama bottoms. And I think it's supposed to be cool right now. I don't know. It was never cool in the first place. So I'm just going to go with what they're doing. But it also gives it an option to be able to use that as well.
Absolutely.
And then we have our more comfort items. So we put the fidget, and then we put the blanket, and we put the notepad all in the top areas of that. So
and a stuffy if the age, right, dependent.
So from 9 down, we do a stuffy, right? And we only make bags down to age 5 right now.
Yeah.
But like this, to give you an idea on the research aspect of this, I've just started research along with Children's Mercy on trying to figure out what we can put in a bag for an infant through age 4. And like my first initial thought was like, I'm going to go ahead and what would I want in a bag? And I'm like, a stuffy, a blanket, like 4 footy pajama bottoms, because 24 hours for a baby, you can go through a lot of clothes and stuff like that.
Blowouts there.
Like all of these, like how many of all these things? And I put together my list and I sent it to Children's Mercy, and I'm like, well, what do you think? And they're like, so you can't put a stuffy in, you can't put a blanket in because of safe sleep practices and stuff like that.
Yep.
So right now we put a stuffy in from age 9 all the way down. I think we'll probably put it to age 3. But when it comes to like comfort items, we try to make sure that it's the right thing for the right age.
Yeah.
And then if they really like stuffed animals and they're older, then get them a stuffed animal, guys.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that is a lot of intentionality in items that are in the bag. And I think that that's communicating a lot of incredible things, right? We've heard stories from social workers of kids like getting a bag and being like, oh my gosh, is this really mine? Like, is this like truly for me? Like, actually being able to take some ownership of it. There's an interesting kind of dynamic that we actually hadn't thought of that you and I were talking about earlier that I think would be really fascinating for anyone listening to kind of understand. And that's really a little bit more of the psyche behind. Now that we understand the items that are in the backpack and the intentionality of it, when they receive the backpack, it actually matters who they receive it from.
It does.
Because a lot of times they're going to think like, oh, do I have to pay this back? Do I owe you something for this? I want to dive into a little bit more of the psyche behind that.
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea. And it's like, as you said, it's something that we hadn't thought of. And we were already building these bags, and it was brought to my attention like last week. And individuals said that with some places, like, and not that these places aren't amazing, but if you have to request a bag and the foster parent gets that bag.
Yes.
And then they get it for a couple days, and then the foster parent is the one giving them that bag initially on the first meeting, then what's going to happen is that child who in a trauma response is going to think, I now owe them.
Yes.
And so they're like, I owe this person. And this is not to discourage foster parents from giving these children what they need.
No, please
don't.
Do that. Yeah.
Like, obviously are. But I think it is wise for a foster parent to understand that these kids do go into a very give and take society. And so when they get something, they're probably most likely going to have that, now I owe them, now I have to pay them back response.
Yeah.
And so even though, like, with us, we're giving this as, like, kind of a nondescript person giving them this bag, we're able to be the thing that they can't pay back. So they don't have that response of, now I owe them.
Yeah.
It's just, okay, this is mine. But it's good for foster parents to think about this when they're also giving their kids, so that they can have it in their mind and they can reassure them, no, you don't owe me for this. This is yours forever, so on and so forth for that.
Yes.
But for our bag specifically, when they first initially get in, what you want is you want this kid to get to a placement that you don't have to worry about running around and getting the items they need, the foster parents running around trying to get the items, the social workers trying to get the item. The child, that's not even on their radar. They're still trying to, like, recover from the flashbang of the day that they just had.
Yeah.
And they're still hearing ringing, and these people are running around. And because we're so focused on these items that they need, they're not able to focus on their psychological and emotional needs.
Yeah.
And so this bag does a couple different purposes. Is number one, they give those items so that the social workers and the foster parents can relax a little bit. But then they're able to focus on that emotional need of the child. And then it gives the child belonging. It gives the child, like, worth. It gives them hope back. But it also gives them hope back without feeling like they owe anybody for it. Yeah. And it's like this multi-purpose, really amazing thing. And we just set out and we're like, we need to put items in a bag for these kids. And it's become this amazing thing that God has done. And I love it.
I think that's what's cool, when you stay open and you hold things kind of open-handedly. It can morph into what it needs to be. Mm-hmm. When you hold something so close, like this is the way it must be, you can kind of put yourself in a box where you can't see anything else outside of that.
Yeah.
And we've held this so open-handedly that it's been able to morph and mold and become what it is actually still becoming, by the way.
Yeah.
We're not like, we haven't
It can never
finished.
not evolve.
No, it will continue to evolve.
I think that that's important, knowing how foster care changes and how we want to change foster care.
Yes.
How we're setting out to try to make a difference.
Yep.
And we need to make sure that we keep an open-handed, open-mind approach to things, going, okay, this didn't work for this reason that we didn't think of. And understanding that we don't know everything. And that
very little. Yeah.
Very little. And who was it that said, I understand enough that I don't know everything? It was some Greek philosopher. I don't remember. Or I understand enough that I know nothing. That's what the saying was. I think it was like Socrates or something like that.
We can look it up.
Who knows? It's a person. But yeah, it's good to keep with that mindset of, I didn't think about that. And it's not a critical down on your being. Like we don't go, oh no, we suck. We go, oh, okay, we'll adjust.
Yes.
And I think that that's good just in day-to-day life, honestly. I try my best. There's sometimes I do get a little prickly when it comes to correction, but
one thing I just want to jump back to just really briefly that I think is important to understand, and I think really sets us apart too, is you actually, many organizations, and you mentioned this, many organizations are set up that you have to request a backpack, and then it is sent to you, and it can take a couple days to be able to get to you, where ours, we intentionally set it up to be on the front line so it can be in the first 48 hours.
Be within hopefully the first 2.
Hopefully the first 2, and then last you, I should say, the next 48 hours to be there for what you need for the next couple of days, as opposed to waiting a couple of days to be able to get it. And in fact, if you do request one of our bags, we can't easily just actually send you a bag.
No, it's not really easy. The way that we work is through working with the frontline workers, and also getting feedback through those frontline workers. Yeah. But what's so cool is that we hear things about that story, about that little girl that she got a bag and she opened it up and she's like, is this really mine? Yeah. And it's outstanding. And it becomes like this horrible day for this child that, they may know why they're getting taken. Because, let's be honest, these kids are survivors. They're smart, and all of a sudden they're like, not only am I getting things, but I'm getting nice things.
Yeah.
And so it's really cool when we work with these frontline workers, and they'll tell you of all the stories of what they've heard of before, and these kids, like what it's like when they don't get it back versus when they do, and how they act and how it's different and how it changes the dynamic of the moment.
Yeah.
And it just like, for us, it's always that, okay, cool, another 5 years down for inspiration, like we just bear down. And we've said this, like you and I amongst ourselves, and I've had to repeat it to myself in the really hard times, is if it makes a difference in one kid,
it's worth it.
Then it's worth it.
Yeah, so much so.
And like, there's times where I'm not going to kid with everybody. It's hard. It's hard. People get burnt out. Life gets tough. Things happen in life, and you get to the point where you're like, maybe I can't anymore, and you just want to quit.
Mm-hmm.
But then one kid, dude, one kid. And they matter. And I think that's important, is when I see these backpacks, I don't see backpacks anymore.
Yeah, you see kids.
I see kids.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't have to be, and we've said this a lot, Jess, and I'm just going to speak to the audience for a second, is you do not have to be in foster care to care about foster care. These are kids that are in your school, right? Mm-hmm. So you don't even need to be an adult to make a difference. You actually have an opportunity at a young age to be able to see another child and still love on that child. These are your neighbors. These are your classmates. These are individuals in your community, and you have an opportunity to impact your community. I just want you to sit on that for a second and like just realize that this is not just something I can listen to and learn about, but you can take action. And that's my challenge to the audience is through this podcast is we want to embolden you to take action. We, Jess and I, are not meant to do this alone at all.
And there's no way we could do it alone.
No.
And I'm going to interject one thing.
Please
and
do.
I've said this a couple of different speaking things, and just to myself as well, is something that I struggled with, and I still struggle with today, and I think everybody struggles with, is you see something horrible that's going on in life, or see something that should be done, and we go, man, somebody should do something about that.
Yep.
Somebody.
Yeah.
I want to remind everybody that you are somebody. And you may think, I'm not qualified enough, or anybody but me, not me. It's not me that needs to do that, because someone else could do it and they could do it better. Yeah, but you're being called in that moment to do it.
Yeah.
So remember, if somebody needs to do something about it, that you are somebody. And that's important.
That is so important. Look, the reality is we can't fix everything, but we can change the beginning. And that's what we're trying to do here, right? So we're not trying to solve all issues in foster care. Actually, our heart is to potentially solve all issues,
right? It would be
nice,
yeah.
Ultimately, but hey, you know what? We can at least look at the beginning and change how that story might start for that child. And so, if you're like, okay, Chris, how do I get involved? What can I do in this moment? What are some practical steps that I can take? Well, okay, first of all, we need a lot of items to be donated. We have specific items, so you can email us to be able to get that list, and we can send you links to certain items that your community, whether that's a neighborhood or a small group, a church, a business, a school, you can donate certain items. If you want to donate funds for a packing event, that's a way that you can do that too. And we love that from a team building standpoint. You can volunteer at a public packing event if you're local, and we have those every once in a while. A lot of times
we get the funding.
if we get the funding, right? A lot of times it's going to be through a business is usually a big connection for that. But you can partner, speaking to businesses, you can partner as a business and organization to be able to help us out. You can share these episodes. And if you know somebody also, if you are an individual that has a story and experience in this space, and you feel like you would like to share that, go to our website and fill out a form, and we would love to connect with you and maybe bring you on or bring somebody that you know on to these episodes to be able to, again, embolden people. But every backpack tells a story, Jess, and I guess I'm just really looking forward to seeing how this can rewrite chapters for individuals. So yeah, really, really great conversation today. I think it was exciting.
I stayed on topic. I'm really proud of myself.
You did so good. So thank you. You guys, I really appreciate it. We're going to be diving into a lot more detail on other episodes and hearing a lot more stories, and so I can't wait. Thank you so much for joining us on today's episode, and I look forward to a conversation in the future.